Hello, everyone, and welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts here on the UGA Sports YouTube channel. I am Blaine Gilmer here once again with Jed May and Trent Smallwood. We got everybody back, and despite the downtroddenness of Braves fans out there with Freddie Freeman no longer going to be with the Braves, there's still other stuff that we got to talk about here in terms of Georgia recruiting. I know Trent, that had to hit home today with Freddie not coming back. I know we're going to talk recruiting, but got to get that out of the way first.
Yeah, I mean it's bad because Freddie Freeman's kind of like. First of all, he's all my son's ever known as a 10-year-old, and growing up watching him, he's kind of like, I guess, like the Chippers and all that stuff were in our childhood. But
he's the Chipper of this generation for sure.
But I do think it was a smart move by the Braves to not lock themselves down like that. But also, it was it's a business decision, and that's where it comes. So. Best of luck to Freddie, and the Braves are gonna, I think, do big things this coming year with Matt Olson. So,
absolutely, this is how we all felt today. Arms crossed, just kind of frowning a little bit. So Bobby wasn't thrilled.
No doubt. But there is a lot for Georgia faithful to be thrilled about when it comes to this weekend. We've put our visitor list that we're building upon for this weekend, and also some other ones that aren't even listed on there that are coming in the coming days. Today, Danny O'Neill, a quarterback from Indianapolis in the 2024 class, was there. UGA Sports learned today that Julian Juju Lewis, who's going to be a freshman and probably the starting quarterback at Carrollton High School this fall, he's going to be in Athens tomorrow. Also, Rico Walker, a 2023 outside linebacker edge prospect that Georgia hasn't really been in on a lot until Coach Uzo Duribe got into the mix for Georgia and really intensified that recruitment. So, guys, a lot of heavy visitors, and of course, Jed, the big guns of Arch Manning, Tony Mitchell, Tamarian Parker, Cedric Baxter, some of the big 2023s, and also the reclassified LT Overton, all going to be in town this weekend.
Yeah, it's crazy because there was so much of that LT Overton like furor or whatever and fervor, and we kind of forgot about him for a while just because once he's taken officials, you can't do that until March 1st. And then I realized this morning that he'd be on campus. I believe he's not coming until Sunday because of a schedule conflict. But, yeah, a lot of big hitters. This is the recruiting weekend. I think we might have talked about this last week, Blaine. Just this is the weekend that has been kind of circled on the calendar. And really throughout this week, there's guys coming in tomorrow, guys coming Thursday, mainly, to watch Georgia practice and everything like that. Even today, like you mentioned, Dylan O'Neill, Anthony Carey, one of the top running backs for 2024. So things are really starting to pick up for Georgia after a slow couple weeks of visits to kick off this month.
Trent, anything in particular stick out about the guys that we know are coming in either tomorrow or later this weekend?
I guess there's a lot of talk recently about Arch Manning. The speculation's everywhere, but, kind of trending somewhere else. And to see him come back on campus is big for Georgia. Anytime you get these Alabama guys on campus, that's big. They seem to be getting the whole, group of these Alabama prospects on at different times, but they're getting them on campus on a regular basis. You were talking about what we were talking about the new outside linebacker coach. Is it? I just do it for short, Uzo or whatever.
Uzo.
But I think he's going to be a good hire just for the fact that he's engaged. Like I see him on Twitter, like on a ton of prospects, just engaged. Even if Georgia's not like one of the main guys, he's engaged in a lot of different prospects, and I just feel like he's going to be a big boost on the recruiting trail as well. So
he seems to have that natural connection with some guys too. I was talking to Tamarian Parker about it, and they're talking about shoes, their shoe collection. Apparently they're both big sneakerheads and, wanting to compare shoe collections and all that kind of stuff. So, he's able to relate to these guys, a relatively younger guy that is, and that's important in these days, with the times of social media and, being able to talk to guys about NIL opportunities and things that are out there, not that the universities can set them up, but talking to them about opportunities that their players currently on their team have taken advantage of and things like that. It's important to have that, kind of, I guess, to still be with it and stuff like that. And he's a younger guy that played not too long ago himself. So that's a big, plus, and probably undoubtedly a reason why Kirby Smart brought him onto staff. So, and Jed, another guy that catches my eye there is that Cedric Baxter, the running back. I know you talked about Carey that's coming in the 2024 class, but Cedric Baxter, with Georgia looking to take two backs in this class, for a long time it was presumed to be Justice Haynes and Trayon Webb, and Trayon Webb looks to maybe be trending elsewhere, and Georgia, looking maybe circling the wagons back towards Richard Young, trying to make another big push there. And then now you have Mr. Baxter coming in from not from Milwaukee, not Baxter from Milwaukee. It's Baxter from Florida.
Yeah, we talked about him, whether it was last week or week before. We talked about the plan B or C options of running back outside of those top guys, and we mentioned Baxter, but at the time he didn't have Georgia in his top 10 or whatever. So seeing him on campus is not necessarily a surprise, but something that, when you get these running backs on campus and they talk to Del McGee and they are sold on how Georgia's produced that position, all that kind of stuff. It's hard for any running back to leave Athens not seriously considering Georgia, So to see him on campus is obviously one of the more intriguing names to see if Georgia really works its way up in that recruitment going forward.
Yeah, and when you talk about running backs as well, a guy that we highlighted, we got that question asking, who could be a kind of under the radar type guy? Jamarian Wilcox, from South Paulding, is a guy, and since that our show last week, I talked to him a little bit, and he said he's texting with Del McGee every day. Every day he wakes up to a text message from Del McGee talking about his family, about faith, about things like that. So Jamarian Wilcox is definitely a guy that you need to be on a lookout for this fall. Trent, I think he's a guy that when you talk about guys that can skyrocket through the rankings, he's built that 5'10", 5'11", 195 to 205, depending on where he's going to end up playing at. Deadlifts, a car. He's just a strong guy, and Del McGee's mentioned to him that his running style reminds him of how Nick Chubb used to run.
Yeah, it seems like Georgia took two of them in the last class of the kind of the stout power backs, and it seems kind of like the more spread it out than kind of go with the power at the running back position, which is you have the playmakers on the outside. Which, not to say these guys ain't playmakers, but they're just going to be able to. You're not going to have to line up in the normal 2 or 3 tight ends, which I'm sure Kirby will still do that at times. But the 2 or 3 tight ends, because you got more versatile tight ends as well to flex out. So. It seems like they're going more of that power back, and he kind of fits that mold of what they're recruiting these days. And, I think he would be with Webb trending elsewhere. He's not a bad, I guess if you put him in the B or C tier, he's not definitely not a bad one to be a backup to.
No, I think it's something that you're just going to have to, look as it goes. But I think Georgia 100% number one target out there is Justice Haynes in terms of the running back position. They get him, locked down. Maybe, that's going to go down for a while. Clemson making a push to get in it. Ohio State is still heavily in it. So got to see how those official visits turn out. I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up visiting Georgia before too long out here. But for sure, the running back position is one to keep an eye on, along with that edge position on defense. Like we said, Rico Walker, Jed, you and I saw him at the Rivals 5-star challenge not too long ago in the kind of the meeting room stuff last year. And he was at that point talking about it was a deal where Dan Lanning and Todd Hartley were still kind of fighting over him to see where he would end up playing and stuff like that. It seems like Georgia has now settled things at the tight end spot, even though Lawson Lucky did take a visit. He said he's still 100% locked into Georgia, but he did take a visit to Alabama this past week and got the red carpet rolled out for him over there on a visit. But Rico Walker was a guy that Todd Hartley was even thinking about, could he do tight end because he plays both ways? He said Georgia still talks about that from time to time, but Uzo Duribe is kind of taking over that recruitment and is getting him in there tomorrow. But him and Tamarian Parker, that could be, if they were able to get two guys like that following up Marvin Jones Jr. and Michael Williams in this class, that Georgia edge position could be set for a good while.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest athletic freaks we've talked about in this 23 class is Nicholas Harbor. And he's the guy that's got the world-class track speed, but I believe he also plays tight end in high school. And Rico Walker, not quite on that same level of athleticism, but a guy that obviously has enough to play both ways at a very high level. So that's what they want in that outside linebacker position, is the ability to, get after the passer, number one, play in space, tackle in space. And what better way to, a guy that can play both sides of the ball very effectively is, very adept at doing that.
You got Darius Smith too, who played some wide receiver in high school. So,
I mean, you just throw a guy out there that can do, windmill dunks from the free throw line, and then he's got arms long enough for touch his knees without bending over, and say, "Hey, just go out there and run a fade route, and we'll throw it up to you." So that's what Appling County did with Darius Smith a little bit. So that's definitely a guy that is going to be interesting to see as he gets his Georgia career started. Two 2024 guys that are interested in this weekend, both Buford guys are, I think, King Joseph Edwards is transferred over to Buford now, I believe, right? I think he's transferred over. But you got KJ Bolden, definitely a Buford standout that is, and 2024 guy that he took a visit to Clemson recently, and Georgia. He was in meetings with Justice Haynes, Pierce Spurlin, and KJ. It was KJ Bolden, Pierce Spurlin, and Justice Haynes in meetings with Todd Monken not long ago on a visit last year. So that tells you what kind of priority, Jed, that KJ Bolden is at receiver coming out of Buford.
Absolutely, that kid is a freak. I mean, Blaine, me and you have both watched Buford, and Trent too. We've watched Buford multiple times last year, and that team had Isaiah Bond and Jake Pope and all those guys. KJ Bolden was the guy that looked like the best dude on the field when at least when I was there. I don't know about you guys, but he's a freak with the ball in his hands. I talked with him at the Under Armour camp a couple of weeks ago. He really liked the hire of Brian McClendon. Georgia has made. He talked about when Cortez Hankton left, Coach Smart and all those guys reach out to him and say, "Hey, don't worry about it. You're good. You're still a priority to us." And obviously Brian McClendon's come in and done the same thing. So yeah, a huge, huge prospect. And somebody asked him at the Under Armour camp, like, why is Georgia not had a lot of success getting Buford guys? And he's like, I don't know. I think some of those guys, they intend to go play out of state throughout their recruitment. And he actually noted that he used to be that way. He wanted to go play out of state, but now with the interest that Georgia's shown him, he's, obviously a lot more open to staying home playing for the Bulldogs.
Well, and that's not an uncommon thing either, just for the state of Georgia. There's Trent mentioned the state of Alabama is so loaded with talent this year. Well, I was talking to some prospects out of the state of Alabama. I'll leave names out of it, but they said, man, a lot of us want to get outside of the state of Alabama. So that is actually a selling point for Georgia to be able to, say, get away from home a little bit, kind of, spread your own wings, do that kind of deal. And that's attractive to some of these guys. But, two big state of Alabama prospects coming in this weekend, as we've mentioned, with Tamarian Parker, the edge, and then also Tony Mitchell. Trent, if you could just, kind of dive in a little bit, what makes Tony Mitchell so special in this class is he could end up being maybe the top corner in the class before everything's all said and done.
I mean, he's just the type of corner that Alabama and Georgia want. He's physical. He uses his hands well. He's got length. He can press. I just love his game. He's one of the 3 or 4 corners that that I look at as really the cream of the crop. And he's just that. He's that guy that everybody wants on an island. You can put him on an island. You can trust him on an island, and he can just worry about the other side of the field. So he's
a bigger guy too, bigger corner.
So he kind of reminds me. I mean, more. He's not as tall as God, my mind slipping.
Keely Ringo, what Keely
Well,
Ringo?
even Keely Ringo, he's not as tall as Keely Ringo, but he's about the thickness is there. So
yeah.
So yeah, I was referring to the kid from Miami that was here a few years ago.
Tyson Campbell.
God, there it is. But he's a little thicker than Tyson Campbell. But yeah, he's a kid you can put on an island, play physical, play press coverage. Just exactly what he's to a T. What Kirby Smart and Nick Saban want in the corner.
No doubt. And also things that you have to look at before we start getting to our questions and stuff like that here and addressing deeper into the Arch Manning situation and some different quarterbacks. Fran Brown, the new coach from Rutgers that is now coaching DBs at Georgia, he's making a difference already, guys. I talked to, and I'm going to throw some film up there, but I just recently had talked to 2024 athlete wide receiver Tyzer Denmark, and he's a guy that Coach Brown has been recruiting a lot, while he was at Rutgers, and now that that's carried over to Georgia. So you can see, a guy that from that Philadelphia area over there can be utilized in different ways. But Trent, that's already going to start paying dividends for Georgia, having a guy that has those connections in the Northeast. Even though Georgia already had that Philadelphia pipeline there with like Swift and Mark Webb and Tyke Smith, this only helps out when you can reach out to guys like Tyzer Denmark.
There's a ton of playmakers up there in the Maryland, Pennsylvania area that Georgia. I mean, yeah, they had some success with getting Mark Webb and DeAndre Swift and those type of guys, but there's been a lot of top corners come through there, and it's not necessarily this year in this specific class, but there's been a lot of guys come through that area, and having that connection up there now is big. And Fran Brown's a guy who's been in position to be a head coach, and bringing that kind of knowledge to the defense. He kind of steps in and can offer another opinion in that defensive room. You lose Dan Lanning, who was a great mind in that defensive room, and now adding another great mind in that defensive room only helps. There's a lot. It's full with Schumann and Muschamp and those guys, but bringing another guy in that of his I guess stature, his knowledge of the game only helps that defense
for sure. And one thing I noticed with a guy like a Tyzer Denmark that we just showed, you look at Dylan Bell, who they signed this past year, who was used in a multiple variety of different ways. Even Adonai Mitchell, when he was in high school, was used in a variety of different ways. They're looking for guys who are just Trayon Webb, who they've recruited. Now it looks like he's probably trending elsewhere. Florida, South Carolina, very strong in that recruitment. But guys that just have ability to create in space. That's the phrase that when I ask them, what's the message to these recruits? They said Kirby Smart tells them he wants to get the ball to him in space and let him create. And that's whether that's KJ Bolden, whether that's a Tyzer Denmark. That seems to be the message. And Jed, they've been able to secure some of those guys. Like I said, a Dylan Bell in this class who played quarterback, running back, and receiver for his high school, throughout his time there. So it seems like they're really going after that versatility when it comes to the playmakers.
Yeah, I mean, look at the tight ends too. I mean, Pierce Sperlin is a receiver trapped in a tight end's body. I mean, Lawson Lucky, Darnell Washington, Brock Bowers, Oscar Delp. I mean, those guys, versatility, it's becoming more and more prevalent, it feels like, on the offensive side of the ball, but I guess specifically in those pass-catching roles. And like I said, Dylan Bell and Oscar Delp and all those guys, you can line them up all over the place. They can run a variety of routes. Tight end wise, they can block as well. So definitely something that Kirby Smart and the staff have really started looking for over the past, it seems like 2 or 3 years.
No doubt. And so we'll be touching on all of those guys that are showing up this weekend. Of course, we're going to delve into the questions here in just a second that are going to center around, some quarterback things and stuff like that. But speaking of quarterbacks, I did want to mention, as I've already touched on earlier, Juju Lewis class of 2026 quarterback that's going to be, by all accounts and all estimations, a generational type talent. He's going to be in Athens tomorrow, Tuesday, as this drops on the podcast version. So if you're listening to it on the podcast version afterwards, he'll be in town on Tuesday, the 15th. And then in class of 2025, Antoine Hill, that we have a piece on UGASports out of Houston County, where Jake Fromm played high school ball. He started as a freshman last year at Houston County. He has an offer from Georgia. He's been texting with Todd Monken every week, and also assistant offensive line coach Eddie Gordon. So there's a relationship there. That's class of 2025. As I said, class of 2024, Danny O'Neill from Indianapolis was in town today. So, guys, the quarterback, that's 20, 24, 25, and 26. There's all guys visiting this week. And also got word that maybe Prentice Nolan from Langston Hughes, a left-handed quarterback in state, could be coming into town this weekend as well. And they haven't dropped that on the vault. So see a little breaking news here on the UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. But without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into some of these questions here. Didn't have a ton of questions this week, but we'll hop into them, maybe get a little more depth to them. Jed, your guy from Pennsylvania here, we gotta read him first.
Pennsylvania guy, my family roots. Manning was at Athens for the South Carolina game last year. I'm assuming he's talking about Arch. However, when do you anticipate he makes an official visit before his announcement in the fall?
Okay, so one thing I do know, Trent, and I want everybody to understand, there is finite amounts of information about the Mannings, and that's by design, right? That they put out there. But one thing we do know about the Manning family is they value the college experience. It's not going to be the more modern style of recruitment and things like that. And we'll get into a situation that is mind blowing, in my opinion, out there in terms of quarterbacks and NIL and all that in just a little bit. But I think that because of that, he's going to take all these official visits, Trent. I don't think he's going to just take one official visit to a place and be done with. I think Georgia, Texas, Alabama, heck, even Ole Miss with the ties there could get an official out of Arch Manning just for the experience of the college experience there.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, he's like we've discussed over and over and over, that they're going to do their homework. They're smart about this. It's not going to be one coach makes a difference in this whole thing. They're going to take their visits. They're going to, come in, evaluate the academic side. They're going to evaluate the coach's side. They're going to evaluate how he's going to be used in offense. They're going to go full blown on this thing. And I think, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, like you mentioned, Ole Miss, probably one other that probably take all 5 official visits. And the timeline on his official visits, it is really up in the air. I don't really know when he plans, but I do know taking an unofficial visit this weekend to Athens is good news. Getting an unofficial, then getting another official, I guess probably in the summer at some point, if he plans on making a decision closer to football season. I would assume those officials would happen June, sometime around there. But we'll wait and see. But like I said, they're going to do their homework. They're probably going to take 4 or 5 official visits and then go from there. So Georgia's every bit in this thing. They've been in it from the beginning. That they're still in it, and that's good news. That's all you can ask for. And I think he's down to really 3 or 4 schools that he's evaluating closer.
Yeah, and when I talked to Coach Nelson Stewart, the head coach at Isidore Newman, his school that he plays at, Arches, he said that there will be visits, taking multiple visits back to these schools because they're going to do their due diligence, as you said. So he's going to be in Georgia this weekend. I expect him to be back at Georgia at least one more time after that, an official visit. And who knows, this thing could carry all the way into the fall, and he could come back for a game. I mean, you never know how this is going to turn out, but there will be no stone left unturned, so to speak. And Jed, I guess it's worth mentioning this show is called Rumors versus Facts, and we did mention that there's a big quarterback domino that's about to fall. It's been widely speculated that Nico Iamaleava could end up at the University of Tennessee sooner rather than later. Had our guy Adam Gorney, national director of recruiting for Rivals, mentioned that he was blown away by that visit. That there was, he even snuck the line that there was some NIL implications that could be considered. And then the Athletic comes out with a report that a class of 2023 5-star recruit has signed a contract to get $350,000 up front and $8 million over 4 years, $2 million a year. If that is Nico Iamaleava, he goes to Tennessee. One, I think that automatically puts more pressure on. Okay, Nico's off the board. We got to, people who need a quarterback got to get Arch Manning. Or are they going to start looking at Marcel Reed, who was Tennessee's looking at? Dylan Lonergan, where do all these pieces start to fit in after that? So the domino is going to fall, but $8 million, guys, I think we do have to talk about that real quick to see what that's going to be like.
The McDonald's bags have definitely upgraded. So
it's funny because, like, I don't think I saw this on Twitter. Like, if you really put the pieces together, it's like, okay, that kind of money, one, is probably coming from an SEC school, more than likely. That's it's like, Ohio State or Clemson, something like that. Two, that kind of money is probably going to a quarterback. So then you look at the list of 2023 5-star quarterbacks. There's Arch, there's Nico, and then some places have Dante Moore. I'm missing somebody, I think. Point is, like, if you really read between the lines, like you said, Blaine, it kind of really sort of points towards Mr. Nico there. But it's interesting because something we've talked about is these schools, say whoever gets Nico is out of the race for Arch. Basically, it kind of seems like. So his commitment would be telling. Tennessee hasn't really been in the Arch Manning sweepstakes as much, at least as some of these other schools. So the race will only heat up that much more once Georgia and Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, these other schools, they're still in it for Arch. It's only going to get that much more competitive as basically it's still 4 or 5 schools fighting instead of, the number dropping by one.
Yeah, and these collectives are the thing that where this money's coming from, right? Tennessee's got a collective. Georgia has started a classic city collective now. The Florida Gator collective may be the most successful one out there. Already having raised upwards of $5 million since they've started, and being able to pool resources with successful businessmen, with successful, with lawyers, all this kind of stuff that are kind of leading this front. That's what these collectives are about, and they're here to stay. So as I said before we move on from the Arch Manning, he's going to enjoy the college experience, and they value the college experience, and they're not hurting for money, but also understand that the Manning family is not going to turn their nose up at money. I mean, because you look at what Peyton Manning did when he won his last Super Bowl, right? He mentioned Budweiser like 3 times in the interview with the lady, and I think the stock, jumped up like 5%, 5 or 6% after that in the Super Bowl press conference that he had, and he mentioned it later on in an interview with like Jimmy Fallon or something. So they're business savvy. They're a family that knows what's going on. So I expect I don't know if that'll be the overwhelming factor in it, but guys like presumably Nico Iamaleava, Trent, it's going to be a determining factor, at least to a certain point with these guys going forward.
Yeah, definitely. But the thing with Manning is it doesn't matter where he goes. Manning's going to get paid. Just by his name. He's going to draw in nil. Now with Nico, he's and this is where I think things are getting a little iffy with the whole deal is buying recruits. I mean, that's basically what this has turned into, and we've talked about it on the show a couple of times. I think at some point, and I'm okay with the whole nil situation, but at some point, you're going to have to do something about the buying the recruits thing, because not everybody's got $8 million stashed away to say, hey, I'm going to pay you $8 million over 4 years. It's gonna get crazy, and I think Lane Kiffin and several others have been against buying the recruits, and I think you've seen the whole Texas A&M ordeal this year. And this is where the playing field is going to level. If this continues, I guess it very well could level the playing field at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's going to be – I think it's going to bring parity to a certain point in terms of just thinning out recruitment at the very, very top just enough to where there's going to be a different fly in the ointment type team every year like Michigan was this year. You know, not somebody that's going to knock people like Alabama and Georgia off of the pedestal, right? But just to have a more consistent, more realistic chance to have a seat at the table, so to speak. I think that's what you're going to see out of some of these guys. All right, next question.
Especially the quarterback position. I mean, you've seen what you can do if you land a dynamic quarterback, and we've seen what Tennessee's offense is capable of. You land a guy like Nico in this class, if he's got playmakers around him, Tennessee's got an opportunity. You know, they're terrible on defense. They got to get better on defense for sure. But, you know, that is somebody that can threaten Georgia, you know, immediately just from, you know, buying a quarterback. So,
well, you see what I think, in my opinion, you know, this is a show about recruiting. It's not necessarily about what's coming up, but you talk about a guy like Hendon Hooker who's coming back for Tennessee. You know, Tennessee was in a dogfight of a ball game in the fourth quarter with Alabama last year at Tuscaloosa. And like you said, they just didn't have the chops on defense just to get enough stops to make it worth their time and help out that offense. But definitely that's something. And if Tennessee's able to pull out that kind of deal through a collective or through the NIL resources that are coming out up there, that would be a huge, huge victory for the Volunteers for sure. Jed, we got our next question here from Mr. Pine Tree.
From Pine, did Jamil Adai's departure hurt for 2023 cornerback Cormani McLean?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that he was probably starting to build a little bit of a rapport, but I wouldn't read too much into that. I think the good portion of this work in the last class and also towards this class has been done by Will Muschamp, Kirby Smart, you know, those kind of guys. What's your guys' opinion on the DB recruiting and especially Cormani McLean?
Yeah, he seemed like he had a very big, like, remember he visited in January, kind of like out of nowhere, and then the buzz, you know, I believe it was Adam Gorney talked to him after that, and the buzz was like, oh man, Georgia might have gotten on the level with Alabama and Florida and USC, and then it kind of died out. So it seems like a case where he came on to visit, had a post-visit high, and then it's kind of things have returned back to status quo after that. So Adai's departure didn't help, I guess, but is that the reason Georgia's behind some of his other schools? No, I don't think so. Not by itself, anyway.
And Trent, he was in Nick Saban's office last week, I believe. Andrew Bone over on the Alabama rival site was talking about how, you know, in very glowing terms of Cormani and Alabama, but those same glowing terms were being thrown around, as Jed said, once he, you know, went on a visit to Georgia. So I think it's similar to how Walter Nolan was a little bit last year. I think there's some visit highs going on, as Jed said.
No doubt, and you're going to see that this time of year because, you know, there's going to be visits, and, you know, there's going to be, I guess they're going to come away from it, and they're going, especially to media, they're going to rave about the visit, they're going to rave about the facility, especially top-rated recruits, because they're going to get the red carpet. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down, you know, the top four or five schools that you have the best relationships with, and you know, I think Georgia will have to get him back on campus, and again, things could shift again. This would be one that goes all the way to probably early signing day, and if he commits before then, I could still see it going to early signing day. So,
yeah,
it'd be one of those things where he just he seems like a guy who can be easily persuaded. It might come down to that last visit.
Yeah, and in terms of just in general, when it comes to Georgia recruiting, obviously Kirby Smart, it's important the coaches that he brings on underneath him, you have to be able to recruit and things of that nature. But when you talk about the kind of, I guess, synergy would be the key word to that staff now with a Mike Bobo, who Kirby Smart is, you know, literally best friends with, and you've got Will Muschamp that you know played at Georgia, Brian McClendon back on staff, Stacey Searles, who's been there. I think this is and Todd Hartley, Georgia's alma mater. I think, Trent, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this has to be probably the most comfortable that Kirby Smart has been with the staff, and to that point, I would say if any ground was lost because of a coach going out, I don't think it'll take long for it to be regained with the type of group effort that this staff is going to put together going forward in the class of 2023.
Yeah, no doubt. And you got to think Georgia might be behind the 8 ball a little bit coming into this visit season, strictly because they did have a lot of changes on their coaching staff, but that can be quickly corrected, like you said, with just the staff that's in place, the trust that's in place, and get these kids on campus and be able to see the staff at work now. And I don't think much ground is going to be lost. It might seem like it now because these kids haven't been able to get on campus and meet the coaching staff, but I don't expect any ground to be lost on the recruiting trail with the recruiting staff they got on campus now. I mean, we saw Bobo out at Bobo was able to be at the Under Armour camp a couple weeks ago, and because his son was there, and he got a firsthand look at a lot of these top quarterbacks. But having Bobo as I know a lot of people are not fans of Bobo at Georgia because third and Bobo, all that stuff, but having him as an analyst just to help with the quarterbacks. Monken's not a quarterback guy. Him and Buster Faulkner being in there to work with quarterbacks, I mean, that's a big deal. And just having that experience, being able to bring recruits on campus, having that experience of having, hey, I got Monken as the offense coordinator, then I got 2 quarterback gurus that can really help me develop my game that are not even coaches on the staff. They're just helping me in my everyday, work. And that's a big deal.
Yeah. And you kind of touched on it too with some of that stuff, but when you talked about 2 positions, when you talk about wide receiver and DB, when you got Todd Monken on your staff, your wide receivers are going to end up being fine no matter who the wide receivers coach is, because Todd Monken knows how to coach wide receivers. And then the same thing with Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart at DBs. It doesn't matter who the defensive back coach is, and I think Fran Brown was a terrific hire by Georgia, but it doesn't matter who the DB coach is, because when you got Will Muschamp and you got Kirby Smart, that's where the majority of that recruiting is going to come. A question from YouTube that I wanted to throw up, just a hypothetical here. If Georgia were not to get Arch Manning, who should we, being Georgia, chase? That's from the Sacred Grove. Sacred Grove, we appreciate you tuning in. Some names that you got to throw out there is, I know been in contact with the Dylan Lonegren's camp, the quarterback at Brookwood. He's going through baseball right now, and there's a high probability that he's going to get drafted really high in baseball, and that'll give him a decision to have to think about. But he's a guy who's been adamant about, he loves football, and he always has wanted the opportunity to play college football. Georgia brought him in for the national championship parade and celebration. Jed and Trent, the guys that I saw being brought in for that, whether it's Jamal Jarrett, whether it's Justice Haynes, that date was much like this March 19th date. That date was circled for high priority guys to come in there and see Georgia celebrate a national championship. So I think Dylan Lonegren could be a guy that Georgia really turns the heat up on if they don't get Arch Manning.
For sure. You look at him, there's Marcel Reed out of Nashville. I believe,
and especially if Nico Iamaleava goes to Tennessee, right? Because the Tennessee is high on Marcel Reed as well.
Christopher Vizina out of Alabama's he's 23, right? Not 24.
Yeah, he's 23.
Yeah, so there's guys like that maybe aren't rated as highly at the moment. Or there's also Dante Moore. Georgia's been in contact with Dante Moore up out of Detroit too. So a lot of different options. Georgia's definitely going to look to bring in a quarterback in this class. It's just a matter of, is it the quarterback that everyone's had circled, or is it one of these other guys?
Yeah, I think here is the thing. You've brought in 2 5-star quarterbacks. Well, I guess Gunner fell to 4-star, but you brought in 2 highly touted quarterbacks in back-to-back classes. It would be great to bring in a 5-star quarterback in this class and load that quarterback room, but it's not necessarily a necessity to bring in a 5-star quarterback with what's coming in the 24 and 25 classes as well. So, I think Georgia will go after one for sure. But if they was to lose out on Arch, if they was to lose out, it's not a necessity that they bring in a top rated guy. They can bring in a guy that they has a high ceiling, or that they think might that develop well over the years. But it's not a necessity that they bring in a top guy in this class with what's coming in the 24 and 25 class and what they have on campus.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the 2024 class, Dylan Raiola is someone that Georgia's all over, Trent. I mean, he's a guy that a lot of people even, and I would throw myself in this category. I think Dylan Raiola is a better prospect than our Arch Manning. I just think he does some things that most human beings, God doesn't make to do. Dylan Raiola can do those type of things, and Georgia is, I mean, all in it with nothing but the feet hanging out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's where they are in this recruitment. So, and he's a guy that is going to be, right up there as number one prospect in the country type deal before it's said and done. So, to your point, I think there's a lot yet to be decided when it comes to that. Jed, we got another question from Pine Tree here.
Pine Tree, a lot of rumors, misinformation, and conspiracy believers / deniers out there regarding NIL. How much are some of our opponents relying on NIL, and is the hype overblown?
Well, I think Trent, you can speak to this, but definitely it is. It's not anything you want to make the backbone or something that's your sole pitch, but it's a good piece of the puzzle to have now.
Yeah, and I definitely think for these schools that are more in the rebuilding phase, Georgia and Alabama kind of have an established ground, I guess I'd say, with recruiting. But these guys that are looking up to Georgia and Alabama, the Florida, the Tennessee, Texas A&M, I think it's going to be a big deal because they're trying to get on an even playing field with the big dogs, and this is one way to do it. So I think you're going to see more and more of this NIL come up because if you can't recruit with them and you can't play with them, you got to find a way too. And they've opened up this avenue to do just to do that. So,
Jed, you and I, Trent, we all talk to people who are in recruiting, not just in terms of like sources with programs, but also people who are directly involved in helping advise and train these student athletes. And I don't know about you, but I keep hearing over and over again how strong Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, in particular, are utilizing these collectives and utilizing the opportunities that alumni can afford to certain young men. Of course, we know the story with Texas A&M, but it's going to, it's going to change the game, in my opinion, on how some of these fringe guys who might have in the past just said, hey, I'm going to X program because I want to win a national championship because I can't get paid anything, legally, at least during my college years. Now it gives them a little something to think about.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this develops with Georgia over the next couple of years because Kirby Smart has said his catchphrases, there's a lot more zeros on NFL checks than NIL checks, and we focus on development and all that kind of stuff. So it seems like NIL is sort of a like you said, a piece to the puzzle now. And it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of years, depending on how all this shakes out, if Kirby and Nick Saban stick to those pitches, do they make it a bigger part and just say, or do they just say, the guys that are focused on NIL first, those aren't the guys we want in our program anyway. So it's going to be really interesting to see how much, not necessarily their NIL pitch evolves, but how much it grows. Like, do they emphasize it more and more as, there's more legislation, regulation, the effect it has, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be very interesting to see how Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, start to develop those pitches over the next year or two.
I was talking, and it's also dependent on, these young men. And I think you're going to have to do more background into who's surrounding them. Right. Mm-hmm. Because I was talking to a very trusted advisor of a very high profile recruit here recently and asking his perspective on NIL. And he said, when it comes down to it, do you want an $8 million deal or do you want $150 million deal when it comes to, so some of these guys are going to, bet on themselves and do certain things in certain ways. And there's going to be mistakes made. There's going to be mistakes made by kids. There's going to be mistakes made by collectives. There's going to be mistakes made by people who are advising these kids. And those are going to be tragic, and they'll probably cost some kids and some programs a lot of heartache. But that's just going to be part of it as this goes forward. And we'll see for, all the Georgia fans watching sake, need to hope that Georgia doesn't, fall victim to that. But there's going to be a lot of hard decisions that have to be made out there. Trent, I know, down when it comes down to it, that Georgia was in things more so than people thought with Travis Hunter right to the end. But the NIL and a lot of that, Georgia, there were certain things that Georgia's, I guess, NIL force wasn't willing to try to go out and match with the guys from Barstool and things like that, where he ended up with Jackson State. So we'll, who knows how things turn out differently if it's not in the era of NIL with a guy like Travis Hunter.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're going to see, and this draft, I think, is big for Georgia, and the times and stuff that they put up in this past NFL Combine and stuff. Kirby talking about there's a lot more zeros in NFL contract. He's absolutely true, and especially if you can back it up with, hey, I put 5 guys in the first round. Look at this. That's
maybe 6.
Yeah, that's gonna hit home a lot faster. Or I put 7 or however many in the first 2 rounds. That being able to back it up like that, Georgia waited so long to be able to back up the, hey, we can come here and win a national championship. Now you can back that up. Now all he needed was being able to legit put guys in the first and second round on a every year basis. And I think he is in the right direction to do that. So I think those numbers itself are going to be able to back up. Alabama has that, and being able to keep Georgia and Alabama recruiting the way they are. And I don't, if things change, I think, both of them, Saban and Smart, could adapt. It just depends on where this NIL, heads. If anything's ever put like a halt to being able to buy recruits and stuff. But I think Alabama and Georgia is going to, remain on keep doing what they're doing, and NIL will be a part of their process, but it's not going to be the main part of their process.
And for the kind of last question and the real tough question here, Jed, we got a big one to end here.
Yeah, when will we, Georgia, get our next commitment, and who will it be?
Man, for the longest time, we all, full disclosure, we had a commitment article written up for Jonell Aguero. Thought that that was about to go down, and had information that Georgia felt really good about that. But when you talk about LSU has made a strong surge for Jonell Aguero, and I think they're right there in the mix with Alabama now. So that's one that maybe not as certain about anymore there. But a guy that I would say is in the class of 2023, Tamarian Parker is a guy that I think could really be. It's Alabama and Georgia neck and neck right now, but Georgia gets him on campus this weekend, and who knows, a strong visit that could end up being something to help push him towards doing that. King Joseph Edwards in the class of 2024 might not be a guy too far off either. Is there any other guys that y'all think of that could be strong or leaning towards Georgia sooner rather than later?
You kind of stole my thunder with King Joseph Edwards there, because that kid loves Georgia more than anything. It seems like.
I would think Madden Sanker is a guy to keep an eye on, just because North Carolina was heavily involved in his recruitment, and Stacey Searles who was doing the recruiting there, now comes to Georgia, and he's also, visited Georgia several times, an in-state school, South Paulding guy. Now they're recruiting his running back buddy there. So that could end up being a guy to keep an eye on. But other than that, I think this class of 2023, Trent, has a ways to go in terms of nailing down some guys. And I think it's going to be more into the summer, late summer, early fall before you see some of these commitments popping off.
Yeah, I think you can see a big, June, July, August, somewhere in there. But you mentioned Madden Sanker. You got several Parker, Justice Haynes that you feel good about going into the the spring, summer months. But there's been no indication as far as them, popping off just yet. I think they're going to all, take visits this spring and then into the summer. And I think you could start seeing some commits hit, June, July, and maybe even before that. But I think it'll be June and July will be the big months.
Absolutely. Well, guys, that's all the questions we had from the vault this week. I know Jed and I will be heading up to Charlotte for Rivals Camp this Sunday. So we'll be we'll bring you all the information from that. Still got a couple pieces that are coming out from some of the coverage down at the Rivals Camp down in Miami. I had an interview with Santana Fleming that'll be put out in next day or so. And even talking to some of the guys who have visited here on Monday and Tuesday. Quarterback Danny O'Neill, as I mentioned, from Indianapolis, will have a report coming out with him. So that's all the reason to be a subscriber to UGASports.com, be a part of the Vault community, be a part of the legendary dog event. You could have got the news on Mike White and everything with the Georgia basketball program. We were even talking about as baseball season gets cranked up here, doing some preview content to some SEC series and things like that here on the YouTube channel, and also basketball content when that season rolls back around as well. So we're going to expand the palette a little bit here, Jed and Trent, here on the YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed on here. We'd really appreciate that. Throw us a thumbs up. And then you can also catch everything over at UGAsports.com. Anything before we sign off, guys? Anything coming up that we need to hit before we let these people out of here?
Yeah, I mean, spring practice starts tomorrow, so we'll
no doubt. That is a key piece of information there.
I have everything. Kirby's got a press conference at I believe noon tomorrow. There's also pro days Wednesday, so we'll be able to the new basketball coaches talking tomorrow, I think, right? Yeah, so all kind of stuff coming over the next few days. So like Blaine said, if you're not a member of UGAsports.com, now's the time. No doubt. So that is this episode of UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts, guys. For Trent Smallwood and Jed May, I am Blaine Gilmer, and we will catch you next week on Rumors versus Facts.